Before they begin their first journey as the new Team TARDIS, the Doctor tells Ace that there are 3 rules when traveling with him. Number 1, he's in charge. Number 2, he's the Doctor, not the Professor. She keeps calling him that by mistake. And number 3, well, he'll think the last one up when they get back to wherever it is they're going to go. And so they begin their first journey as the final classic Team TARDIS. First, they make a stop in 1963 to pick up something the Doctor left behind on his very first journey as the first Doctor. In fact, we even get a chance to visit the old junkyard where the TARDIS first took off from. Unfortunately, it's been taken over by daleks. Luckily, the military is there. Not UNIT, I'm afraid, because it's 1963 and UNIT doesn't exist yet. In fact, I'm sure the Brigadier is still a lieutenant or something at this point. So, no Brigadier, no UNIT. Luckily, with a bit of help from Ace and the Doctor, the military managed to take out the Dalek and reveal its gooey blobbiness. But later, at Coal Hill School, they find out it also has been infiltrated by Daleks. Only, the thing is, the Daleks in the junkyard are classic gray and black, and the Daleks in Coal Hill are white with gold livery. And we find out that the gray Daleks serve a black and silver supreme and are renegades who maintain their blobbiness, whereas the white and gold Daleks, instead of being mutated from humans, are actually mutated from Khalids, but are more cybernetic. And apparently, despite the Emperor Dalek ordering this, the renegades, as they're later called, consider this blasphemy against Dalek purity. So now it's come full circle. The Daleks hate everything that isn't pure Dalek, and so they've decided some Daleks aren't just pure enough Daleks anymore. Unfortunately, humans get caught in the crossfire. Military soldiers die. Well, that's an oxymoron for you. Military personnel die is what I meant to say. A couple of humans get taken out, or civilian humans get taken out. And we find out that there are even agents among humanity who are working for the Daleks. The current principal of the school, who's played by none other than the actor who played Admiral Ozzel, in Star Wars Episode 5. And he gets taken out when he fails to apprehend someone who's working against the White Daleks. And a fellow named Radcliffe, who's helping the military, turns out he's working for the Daleks. He has sort of neo-fascist ideas, and he's probably a spiritual ancestor to the ones we saw the Fourth Doctor encounter in the Robot serial. Luckily, he gets a jolt of reality real quick. The Daleks state in no uncertain terms that he is their property and he'll serve them or die, even though he wants to lead humanity as a dictatorship. And we find out that a soldier, a sergeant to be precise, whom Ace has taken a shine to, was working for Radcliffe the whole time, but he didn't realize that Radcliffe was working for the Daleks. Eventually, Radcliffe and the sergeant get killed in the most undignified way possible. It seems the Renegade Daleks battle computer is run by an enslaved little girl who's been given Dalek upgrades like zappers in her hands, which she uses to kill both Radcliffe and the sergeant, and nearly kills Ace, who has availed herself well, actually. It was her Nitro 9 that took out the first Dalek. She repeatedly uses a rocket launcher that the military gave her, well, let her borrow, to take out white Daleks. And after the Doctor soups up her baseball bat with help from a device that he is retrieving, the Hand of Omega, which is a stellar manipulator, which gave the Time Lords the ability to harness the power of supernovas for time travel purposes. She uses it to pretty much maim a white Dalek, although the white ones are a little bit more fragile than their classic counterparts, possibly due to inferior materials gathered on Earth. Unfortunately, when the Doctor uses it to smash the White Dalek's transmat, which is hidden in the basement of the school, the bat sort of gets used up. So Ace needs a new one, and she also needs a new boombox, because she used that to lure a White Dalek out of hiding so she can get the drop on it. She doesn't take well the news that her potential love interest is working for a neo-fascist, who in turn is working with alien fascists. But eventually she sort of processes it, although one of the ugly sides of the early 60s raised its head when between hearing that the sergeant has notions of keeping outsiders out and protecting one's own and nonsense like that, she finds in the inn her potential love interest's mother runs a sign that says "No colors," which is kind of a shock to see such blatant racism. Funny thing is, during one of the quiet moments, when the Doctor pontificates about how decisions can affect future events on a massive scale, a temporary bartender, shopkeep, played by the guy who played Jeffrey from Fresh Prince, pontificates that if people didn't take sugar, his father would have been out of a job because he was a cane cutter. But then again, his, I believe, grandfather or great-grandfather wouldn't have been sold into slavery, although I highly doubt that. People back then had really backwards ideas about what makes a person, so I'm thinking his great-grandfather would have still been sold into slavery for other reasons. But then again, I'm a cynic. And as for decisions making ripples, he says best just to get on with it, and I agree. That was a nice little quiet moment during basically a war between two Dalek factions. And the Doctor wants to play the chess master once again against the Daleks. He decides to give the stellar manipulator, the Hand of Omega, to the white Daleks, but first they have to take out all the gray and black Daleks, which they do eventually, and we find out that the Dalek Emperor is not a proper Dalek. It's not the one we witnessed in the Troughton era either. It's none other than Davros, who is still alive and somehow managed to convince some of his quote-unquote children to switch sides and become more machine-like, more cybernetic. But the thing is, the reason the Doctor wanted the Hand of Omega given to Davros is because it's programmed on a kill mission. And Davros played right into the Doctor's hands. and he's helpless to stop. They're both helpless to stop the hand from taking out Scaro's son, which takes out Scaro itself, and, before flying back to Gallifrey, taking out Davros' ship. Oh, he tries to get to an escape pod, and maybe he survived, but things aren't looking good. As for the renegade Supreme Dalek, he's the last one standing, and because he's got no more troops to order around and no way of getting off the planet, the Doctor convinces it to self-destruct, which thankfully doesn't kill the little girl. She was an innocent in all this, even though she was repeatedly plugged into a battle computer that looks like a weird Dalek, and she's got blood on her hands. Thankfully, she gets her mind back and hopefully gets to be sent home with no memory of what happened. After all that, the Doctor and Ace decide to go on a bit of a holiday. Unfortunately, the colony where they visit is under siege. A psychotic lady who finds unhappiness to be a severe anathema has dispatched kill gangs to hunt down anyone who isn't insanely happy looking. And the kill gangs look for any reason to shoot, even if someone's pretending to be happy. And what's worse, the lady has ousted the current inhabitants of the planet, these rat creatures who would have been peaceful if they hadn't been kicked out of their land. And she also likes to dispatch this candy-shaped robot, which is a supervillain unto itself. And it likes to drown people in candy. And everyone around her is secretly unhappy with their lot in life. But there's nothing they can do. They have no choice but to be happy, whether they want to or not. And those who refuse are quickly taken out. Luckily, there are some rebels, those who wish to express their unhappiness sometimes, who are eventually galvanized by a psychology student who's working his way through a vacation by playing blues for money. And he's good, both at his music and also at leading the people. Eventually, the Doctor manages to defeat the Candy Man, as the robot is called. No, he's not played by Tony Todd. And honestly, I found him really disturbing. Anyway, repeatedly, the Doctor manages to outsmart the robot by trapping it with lemonade spilled on its glucose-enriched feet. And later, using the same execution machine that it uses to destroy the outer coating of the robot itself. And the robot's creator, who was for a while enslaved by his very creation, finally enjoys a bit of freedom. He even takes the reluctant husband of the mean lady and leaves the planet, much to her chagrin, because thanks to the rebels overwhelming the kill squads, she is now powerless. And while the doctor tries to reason with her, she is unmoved. She just doesn't get that happiness only has value when we're able to express morose. Now, chronic depression is dangerous. It can lead to dark places. But at the same time, feeling a little bad for a while allows one to feel better later. And she just refuses to give up the notion that you need to be happy no matter what, even if it's fake happiness. With music, or should I say muzak, sweets, and just a lack of any other emotion, which is kind of sad. Although, finally her facade breaks down when her loyal pet, a very dangerous dog-like alien, is destroyed because the doctor had no choice. By outwitting the beast. What happens to her? I don't know. But at the very least, she understands the value of a good cry. After that, the Doctor and Ace travel to Earth in the late 80s to listen to a jazz festival. And it is beautiful. I mean, jazz isn't my bag, but the musicians on hand are top-notch. Unfortunately, their vacation is interrupted by Crazy Duchess from the 1630s and her manservant, or should I say bodyguard, who utilize a potion that the main ingredient is human blood, which she takes by killing the scholar that calculated that they needed to go to 1988 just because he'd outlived his usefulness. She killed him because I guess she didn't want his genius utilized anywhere else. So she deprived the world. She's a complete nut job, and she has the ability to time travel. And the reason she time travels is in 88, a meteorite crashes to Earth, which contains a strange statue, which the Doctor reveals is something called living metal, and 2 other pieces of the statue are already on Earth. A silver-looking bow and a silver-looking arrow to go with a silver-looking statue. But if all 3 are brought together, they form a living entity called Nemesis. And whoever controls it, it gets a lot of power, but it's also a corrupting influence. Turns out both world wars were kicked off by the presence of this living metal. And I did the calculations. If it were still around, it would have showed up in 2013. And considering 2013 had a lot of interesting events happen, it's probably good that, well, spoilers. The Doctor and Ace go looking for this statue, which has disappeared, only to turn up in the crypt of the very crazy lady who started this whole mess. Because apparently she planned ahead. She built a tomb for herself, only to sequester the statue inside, and even a tomb for her bodyguard, who at this point is having a major conniption fit over being in the wrong time period. Add to that a bunch of neo-Nazis who follow one who escaped World War II and fled to South America, who want the power for themselves, and you basically got a powder keg. The fuse, of course, being lit by cybermen who show up looking for the stupid statue. So you got neo-Nazis, cybermen, crazy lady, and the Doctor and Ace, all vying for this statue, which the Doctor's encountered before. Problem is, he miscalculated when he sent the spaceship, which he disguised to look like a meteorite, out into space. So it kept coming back after 25 years. The crazy lady, though, actually thought ahead, and I guess was expecting Cybermen, because she has some very expensive ammunition lined up in the form of arrows, which are tipped with gold heads and poison. So the gold pierces the Cybermen's skin, and the poison interacts with their remaining biological bits. But eventually, she's defeated when she runs out of arrows, and even her manservant chooses not to cater to her whims anymore. But driven crazy by the desire to possess the statue, she tries to tackle the thing, which absorbs her somehow. As for the neo-Nazis, they're taken out by the Cybermen, and a combination of gold coins fired from Ace's slingshot and being able to trick them into destroying each other spells the end for the Cybermen. As for a fleet of cyber ships that are nearing Earth, the Doctor asks the living metal being to destroy them, tricking the Cybermen into thinking into believing that they could have the living metal, when in reality it's going to defy them and blow them up. And with that, the adventure comes to a close. And so, the Doctor and Ace, after dropping off the bodyguard back in his own time and listening to old-timey music from them, head off to a new place at a new time. On a distant planet, they encounter the greatest show in the galaxy. Basically, it's a circus that's mostly clowns, and it's revealed that all but one of the clowns is robots, and the one who's not a robot is a supervillain. Yep, a supervillain clown. Where have I seen that before? Oh, aha. Luckily, this clown doesn't want to put smiles on faces. Not in that way. In reality, he hoodwinks people to come to the circus as spectators, only for them to be shanghaied into the act. And then the people are expected to perform, only for the three consistent spectators, a mother, a father, and a daughter, who act like zombies, to be displeased by the impromptu acts and disintegrate the hapless victim. And those in charge, the ringleader, who likes to crack the whip and who's also black and who's actually pretty good at impromptu rapping, or should I say rhyming, and fortune teller, are basically accomplices to murder. Meanwhile, two of the carnies who want to escape, a robotic engineer named Bellboy and a kite maker named Flower Child, manage to get pretty far, only to be tracked by the very kites the girl makes. And while Bellboy allows himself to be recaptured in order to buy the girl time, when she goes to a derelict bus looking for something in there, she gets killed by a robot that was stationed at the bus just in case. And this breaks the poor chap. He gets tortured into compliance, and for a while his mind breaks. But eventually he remembers what it is he needed to get at the bus. A piece of an eye amulet that belonged to the former leader of the circus troupe, Kingpin, now with a wiped mind and renamed Deadbeat. Unfortunately, the poor chap, Bellboy, decides to let himself be destroyed by his own robots after helping Ace evade capture. Because he can't live without his girlfriend, Flower Child, which I understand. Also, without him, the robot clowns will eventually break down, so he's dealt a grievous blow to the circus. But he did leave Ace one last middle finger for the evil clown and his robots. The final robot that the guy constructed before being enslaved is basically a battle bot, which to which Ace is given the remote, and they go out into the desert and recover it, and it destroys the evil clowns, including the live one. And yeah, a now restored, thanks to the amulet, Deadbeat, now dubbed Kingpin, does lament that the clown was once a good man, funny, clever, inventive, but I guess he lived long enough to see himself become a villain. Meanwhile, the Doctor, who's been in the circus, buying his time and evading capture once or twice, meets up with a colorful group of hostages. A fanboy who has been following the circus his whole life, but who's only recently been able to visit, and who's quickly killed thanks to this explorer guy who is rotten to the core. He's only looking out for himself, and he doesn't care who he hurts in the process. And his assistant, a girl who we later find out is an alien werewolf, whom he tries to get to kill the Doctor, only for her to turn on him. And she's mortified by the fact that she's used as a weapon and treated like an animal back on her home world, and thanks to this guy, respectively. But thankfully, she survives, and even manages to outwit the briefly reanimated explorer guy when they try to get the eye amulet to the Doctor, who successfully buys his time by entertaining the family from before, who turn out to be the deities of Ragnarok. 3 stone characters who like to be entertained, and if they're not, they vaporize you. Which is what was done to that poor fanboy, and a gruff chap who had a really cool-looking motorcycle, who wasn't missed, by the way. The Doctor utilizes Sylvester McCoy's abilities as a stage magician and carny to buy time until he gets a hold of the amulet, which is enough to prevent the deities from smiting him. And instead, they smite themselves. The Doctor redirects their energy blasts, which destroy the out-of-time arena where he's trapped. And once that place starts crumbling, taking the deities along with it, hopefully for good. The Doctor, Ace, the Werewolf Girl, and Kingpin all escape, with the Doctor walking away from the explosion like a boss. And so, the Doctor and Ace, with their friends, have saved the day. Werewolf Girl and Kingpin will hopefully create a new circus, one that, like in the old days, is fun and entertaining and not just a feeding trough for deities. And yet, Ace has had some questions over the course of these last few adventures. The crazy lady from the encounter with the Cybermen says she knew about the Doctor and had secrets to tell. Of course, the Doctor called her bluff, but that piqued Ace's interest. Who is this mysterious Doctor figure? And is there more to his story than just some bloke in a blue box traveling around space and time, randomly righting wrongs? Who knows? And that's the second season of the McCoy era in a nutshell. When we return, we see some more old friends, true friends. The Doctor battles even more Eldritch horrors, and the big setup for the season after that is revealed. Until then, this is Mr. J signing out, reminding you, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Obviously the egg, because there were egg-laying creatures before chickens. Also, even if you're a deity, don't mess with the Doctor. Or Ace.